So it sounds like then it's a bit of a risk if you have the mediator also playing the role of the arbitrator. Tell me, Nadia, how is that being addressed?
Well, you're right, it's a real risk, and it's being addressed in different ways. So from a legal point of view, many arbitration statutes and procedural rules today explicitly acknowledge and in fact envisage that the same person may conduct arbitration proceedings as well as facilitate settlement discussions or conduct mediation either before or in the middle of an arbitration. So by explicitly recognising that, what those provisions say is that merely by using this Med-Arb structure or a variation of it, that of itself does not give rise to evidence of bias. All right. So there's, and you'll find provisions like that in arbitration legislation in jurisdictions like Australia, England and Wales, Germany, Hong Kong, Singapore, India, Taiwan, Japan, just to name a few, and others. But just because there's this rule that says, okay, because you use this Med-Arb type of structure, there's no evidence of bias in itself by using that structure, doesn't mean that the perception of bias might not arise. Okay, so it doesn't solve the problem. What a lot of people now prefer to do is to use separate professionals or separate panels of professionals, and sometimes even separate institutions to run Med-Arb processes or variations of Med-Arb processes. And a good example of this is the relatively new, introduced in 2014, Med-Arb process of the Singapore International Mediation Centre. Now, this is a slight variation on Med-Arb because it involves opening up an arbitration first, and then immediately moving to mediation, and then having arbitration, I guess, as a backup process after that. So it's called Med-Arb. But what the Singapore International Mediation Centre does is works together with the Singapore International Arbitration Centre. And so the matter will first go to the Arbitration Centre, then it will be immediately forwarded to the Mediation Centre. Mediation will be conducted. If there's a settlement agreement, it will go back to the Arbitration Centre and be endorsed as an arbitral award. And if there is no agreement, it will go to the Arbitration Centre and there will be a full arbitration hearing. This, because of the way it's integrated into the clause and the way the process has been streamlined, it has all of the advantages of using, in fact, the same tribunal, right? Because it's so streamlined and the costs are also contained. But it removes the disadvantage of having the same person. And what the Singapore International Mediation Centre wanted to do when they together with the Arbitration Centre came out with this procedure is they wanted it to be a very safe procedure internationally, right? Because different countries will have different rules and different ideas of what amounts to bias, for example, right? Or what's appropriate or not, or what's not appropriate. And so this is the closest that they could come to a really safe, watertight procedure that gave you the best of both worlds, minimized the cost, and also minimizes the risk, right, of perceived or real bias. So that's the Med-Arb protocol of the Singapore International Mediation Centre, for example.